Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Unity Namaste of Ajijic. We have a beautiful service today, but let us, before saying anything, let us start with a prayer. As we do at Unity, we always start with a prayer for everything. So I invite you to please close your eyes if you feel comfortable and place your attention in your heart. Beloved God, Divine Spirit, with all the fervor of our hearts, we come to you to feel your presence, to feel your presence. Father, Mother God, thank you for holding our hands and walking with us this day and every day of our lives. Purify the thoughts of our hearts through the unspeakable gift of your grace, so that we can remember that we are entirely one with you. We hear your voice and we open the door of our hearts to receive you, to welcome you, because we love you. We love you with all we are and for all you are. Together, we send this prayer, this loving energy, this peaceful thought to every heart in Ukraine and in Russia, to children, to women, to men, as we affirm that peace prevails in every heart on planet Earth. Peace prevails. Thank you, Father, Mother God. Amen, amen, and amen. Again, welcome to all of you, and including those who join us every week and every day from Monday to Friday through Zoom. So we are going to call now a person that we love a lot. He is the treasurer of the board of Unity Namaste. He's going to read, that's Gary, and he's going to read the daily word for today. So, Gary, please.
Thank you. This is the daily word for Sunday, March 6, 2022, and it is glory. My life celebrates the glory of God. Glory fills the world with wonder when I attune my senses to it. I hear it in the sound of waves crashing on the beach and in the resonant harmony of a choir. I see it in sunrises and sunsets, in the beauty of gardens, mountains, and forests, and in the eyes of parents holding their newborn child. I feel the glory in the depths of my being at those moments when I understand my life as God's life, living as me. There is no place where my human self ends and the divine presence in me begins. God and I are one. The glory of God is revealed in me as I release the thought that I am only human. God's glory shines through me as the divine presence, the Christ, expressing in my healthy body, my insightful mind, and my loving heart. This is inspired by reading from Galatians 2, verse 20. And it is no longer I who live, but it's Christ who lives in me. Glory. My life celebrates the glory of God.
Thank you. Amen. Thank you, Gary. Thank you, thank you. I love when it says God and I are one. We all are one. Well, now I'm going to explain why I am so excited. We have the blessing of having, well, you will get to know her even better here at Namaste. Our minister in residence is a jewel. I love her so much. And I am really excited of having her here. But I'm going to read just a little bit of what she has done for humanity and all of us. It's Reverend Brendalyn Batchelor. Is an ordained unity minister, licensed professional counselor, certified spiritual director, heart math coach, and unified mindfulness lead coach. She is presently a candidate for certification as a unified mindfulness teacher and trainer. Reverend Brendalyn served as senior minister of Unity Santa Fe, and listen to this, from November 1994 through this past September, when she retired to rewire her life. 27 years in Unity Santa Fe. Well, if a minister lasts 10 years in a ministry, it's a wow. So when I read this, I said, oh my God, they must have loved you a lot, Reverend Brendalyn. She has served the unity movement in numerous capacities, and in 2012, Unity Worldwide Ministries awarded her the Myrtle Fillmore Award, which is given annually to honor a unity minister for their special contributions towards fulfilling the work of Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, which are the co-founders of Unity Movement. Currently, Reverend Brendalyn is serving as the leader of a team of unity ministers, creating an alternative prayer chaplain program for unity ministries. And actually, we are going to use that model for our chaplain prayer program here at Unity Namaste. So I'm blessed to have you here. We all are, seriously, to have Reverend Brendalyn. Prior to ministry, Brendalyn worked as a human resource specialist, sexual harassment investigator, and
Call me Dr. Ruth.
and a Department of Defense fraud, waste, and abuse investigator. Ooh, everybody here is So let us receive with a warm applause our beloved Reverend Brendalyn. Thank you for being here.
We left out the part about singing cocktail waitress and bartender, but that's okay. Okay. Okay, so today, Johannes, she actually asked me the first day I arrived on the 25th, I think, to share with you about myself so that you could get to know me. Well, immediately I thought of a message title, because you always have to have a message title. And the title that came to me was Becoming Brendalyn, as clearly influenced by Michelle Obama's autobiography, Becoming Michelle. And I had never given much thought to what becoming meant, other than its noun definition, which is the process of coming to be something. So I looked it up, and I was reminded of its meaning as an adjective. And it says, parentheses, especially of clothing, flattering a person's appearance, What a becoming outfit you have on today, Johannes. I never cease to be amazed about how Sunday messages come together for me. So I had no idea how to do a message about myself. So I put it on what I call the don't know altar. It's an altar in my consciousness. And I always just put it there and trust that Spirit will reveal to me what needs to be revealed in divine timing and divine order. And I don't worry about it too much. So sure enough, a few days ago, I found myself suddenly being curious whether there was a daily word related to becoming. So I went to what I call 1,000 prayers in my pocket, similar to Steve Jobs, who called the iPod 1,000 songs in my pocket. And I opened the Daily Word app, which I really recommend to you if you don't have it. And one of its capabilities is you can look up prayers by a specific topic. So I typed in be, and nothing came up. So I typed in become, and guess what? A daily word, becoming, showed up. And do you know that it's the only becoming daily word in the almost 100-year history of daily word? Specifically, because I like to check these things out, it is 1 out of 35,673 daily words since July 5th, 1924. And I know that it's July 5th, 1924, not because I was on the planet then, but one day, you know how you pick up the daily word and you go, oh my God, this is just for me today? So one July 5th, I opened it up and it said, happy birthday. And I was like, oh my gosh, it knew it was my birthday. And it turned out it was a celebration of daily words, I think 80th birthday or something like that. And so the first paragraph, well, first of all, the affirmation is, and I want you to listen because I'm going to ask you to repeat it. I do those things that are becoming of a child of God. It's actually, I do those things that are becoming to a child of God. Together? I do those things that are becoming to a child of God. And it's really totally in alignment with today's daily word. So the first paragraph of the reading is, we all like to wear clothes that are becoming to us. And then it goes on beyond the surface appearance and says, in the same way, we can pick out becoming traits of character and disposition. We can clothe ourselves mentally and emotionally in the divine qualities that express our true selves. Here it says, we have perfectly free choice. We can always choose to be kind, thoughtful, loving, and forgiving, regardless of external circumstances. And then it says, when we look in the mirror, we enjoy seeing a reflection of ourselves that is pleasing. Did you ever stop to think that you and I are the mirror in which God looks to see itself? What sort of reflection are we giving God? Does God see its own qualities expressed through us? Isn't that beautiful? I'm going to save the last paragraph to the end. So this particular daily word was based on John 1, verse 12. But as many as received him, or as you said in your prayer, Johannes, as many as welcomed him, to them, he gave the power to become children of God. To those that are willing to receive him, to those of us, when we're ready to receive him, he gave us power to become children of God. So you and I, my friends, have been given power to act like a child of God. So today I'm going to share with you how I stepped into my God-given power of becoming Brendalyn. Someone named Wilson Schaaf in 1990 wrote, "Life is a process. We are a process. Everything that has happened in our lives is an integral part of our becoming." And he hyphenated becoming. And so I would add to that, that the becoming process is ongoing. It doesn't end. My first Unity message when I was studying to be a licensed Unity teacher and I went to the skills demonstration seminar, 2 weeks ahead of time, they gave me the topic, God is eternal and evolving. And so I thought, well, that's the way our process is. That's the way our becoming is. It's eternal and evolving. And it also includes what occupational therapist Anne Allard Wilcock calls the notions of transformation and self-actualization. I just love that. So buckle your seatbelt. Here's a glimpse of what my journey to becoming Reverend Brendalyn included, because that's usually the question people ask me. How did you become a Unity minister? Well, let's go back to the beginning. I was brought home from the hospital, buckle your seatbelts, to live with my parents who were caretaking my maternal grandparents, who everyone, whether they were related to them or not, called Mammy and Pappy. And so Pappy asked when they brought me into the house, "What did you name her?" And my mother said, "Brenda." And to his horror, my grandfather said, "I had a cow named Brenda." Well, needless to say, my family never called me Brenda. I was always called Lynn from that day forth, because that was my middle name. Now, how it became Brendalyn is beyond the scope of today's message. We only have, what is it, 2 hours I have? Now, in my 10th year, without my parents' knowledge or permission, I wasn't about to be left out when my older brother and my two closest cousins made an altar call at Whaley's Chapel, Free Will Baptist Church. So I just followed them up, and on the way home, my mother was furious. And I remember it was as if it happened today. She turned around from the front seat of the car and she shook her finger at me and she said, "Daddy and I are no longer responsible for your sins. You are now responsible for your sins." And I'm like, yikes. But hey, how bad could that be, So I innocently thought, how bad could that be? Well, the following week, I received a full immersion baptism in Catherine's Lake, and I didn't know how to swim. I was terrified. And if that wasn't bad enough, we went home to celebrate after the baptism ceremonies. And while playing fish and, Go Fish and Old Maid on card games as a kid, my cousin said, "Yeah, this is really fun. It's a shame it's a sin." And I'm like, "Say what?" "Oh, yes," they said, "and also dancing." And then they named off God knows what else. Well, those of you who are course students will appreciate that. Speaking of tiny mad ideas, I found myself asking, what was I thinking, right? What tiny mad idea was that? And it seemed that everything after that was a sin. And so eventually I thought, I think the only way that I can become a good Christian is to marry a preacher. You know how that goes, Jack. Now, I can assure you in Bible Belt, North Carolina, it never occurred to me I could become one. Okay? So a few months before my 11th birthday, within a year of that experience, I was plucked from my extended family on a tobacco growing farm in Jones County, North Carolina, and moved with my immediate family to the US territory of Guam. 9,000 miles west of Catherine's Lake. Okay. And my first crisis of faith occurred the first Sunday we were on Guam, when my parents announced that we were not going to church. Well, with the fear of sin, hellfire, and damnation etched into my belief system, I threw what in North Carolina is called a hissy fit. Okay. So my daddy promised that the next week, the next Sunday, we would go to church. And we did. So after church, this time it wasn't my mother turning around shaking her finger. It was my dad looking in the rearview mirror at me. And he said that he would drop me off every Sunday for Sunday school and church, but he and Mama were not going. To which my brother immediately said, "I'm not going either." Well, there was no way that I was going to go without them, because I just knew I would be so ashamed when people asked me where the rest of my family was. So that was the end of my church, my Free Will Baptist days. So church was to be replaced by a lifestyle that I couldn't have imagined in my wildest dreams as a farm girl in North Carolina. I thought I had died and gone to heaven, living on Anderson Air Force Base, where I had access to facilities and activities I had never experienced back on the farm. There was a youth center, a teen club, bowling alley, indoor theater, 2 outdoor theaters, sports teams, 3 swimming pools, a beach. There was a beach on the base and a shuttle that would take me to all those places. Wow, this had to be as good as it gets. So my days on Guam were wonderful. I loved Guam. A lot of the people called it the Rock, and they couldn't wait to get back to the States and all that, but I loved it. And that wonderful experience was abruptly cut short 6 years later, when my dad accepted a job in Washington, D.C. And we moved to Northern Virginia between my junior and senior years of high school. I'll spare you the details of that trauma to my psyche. So after graduating from high school, I joined the Lutheran Church, Missouri Synod. For those of you who don't know, it's the most conservative of the Lutheran denominations. And I joined it because I'd fallen in love, and my boyfriend's parents belonged to a Lutheran Church, Missouri Synod. So after all, I thought it was so cool. They had all these rituals and stuff that we didn't have in the Baptist church, you know, and they would say these prayers together, and I just thought it was really cool. But after going through the confirmation classes, they told me I was expected to join a service team. So I looked at the list, and one of them sounded really nice. So I signed up for the stewardship team. Imagine my shock when I had to go with other team members to congregates' home and ask them to make a financial pledge to the church. I was appalled. Oh my God, get me out of here. So I was very happy when shortly thereafter, in September 1970, I moved to Hawaii. And I vowed to never darken the door of a Lutheran church again. Well, about a year or so after moving to Hawaii, while working as a clerk typist at Pacific Fleet Headquarters Public Affairs Office, I joined Amway. And I had this pie in the sky idea that I was going to sell enough soap to become independently wealthy. Well, I don't think I sold more than a couple of boxes of soap because I found that sales was right up there with serving on the stewardship team, you know? But you know, I got something way beyond financial independence. When one evening, someone at a sales meeting mentioned attending a church that was like going to a Dale Carnegie course once a week. My ears perked up because I guess deep in my heart, I really did long for some kind of spirituality in my life. So I wrote down the name of the church, and the following Sunday I walked, and I want to emphasize, I walked into my first Unity ministry, Unity of Hawaii, on the slopes of Diamond Head. Now, I had never heard the things that I heard that day from the pulpit, including the minister saying, "You are a child of God and you are good." And he meant regardless of how I was acting. I was good. I had never heard those words before. And so even though I had never heard anything like that, there was something in me that knew beyond a doubt that it was true. And so I really felt what so many people say when they find unity, that I had come home. So I attended Unity services in person, or I tuned into their live radio broadcast for about 9 years. I even was married to my first now husband. And I would attend either the service or listen to it live on the radio, when it was convenient. You know, I didn't ever put myself out to go, but if it was convenient, I was there. I never got involved in any kind of sacred service. I never took any classes, never participated in any other activities. And I don't think it ever occurred to me that I could actually live the principles they were teaching. You know, I don't even think I thought of that. Well, in 1980, after 10 years in Hawaii, I moved to Ojai, California. And for whatever reason, I never even looked for a Unity or any other spiritual community. Although I did learn that Krishnamurti had a foundation just down the road, and I let one of his people that came to his talks camp in my yard. So that was the closest to spirituality I got in those 2 years. Well, 2 years later, I separated from my husband and accepted a job in Washington, D.C. and moved back to Northern Virginia. And I don't know, it was about 9 months later, I was brought to my knees by the soon-to-be ex-wife of my soon-to-be second husband. We had to get our individual divorces over first. And the fact that he was my first husband's former boss is a whole nother story. I won't be going into that today. You have to buy the book. And it hasn't been written yet, okay? So sparing you the excruciating details, suffice it to say, my second husband's ex-wife is the reason I am a minister today. And for that, I will always be grateful. So you see, one evening there was a particularly challenging incident in which neither she nor I did those things that are becoming to a child of God. And afterwards, I had this huge shame attack, and beating myself up for my part in the incident, I burst into tears and said to my soon-to-be husband, "I've got to go back to Unity. I've never been around such negativity in my life. I've got to be around something positive, and Unity is the most positive place I've ever been." Well, remember how I said I walked into my first Unity? Well, the Sunday following that incident with my soon-to-be husband, soon-to-be ex-wife, I crawled into my second Unity ministry, Unity of Fairfax. I was ripe for the picking. I began taking classes, and at the beginning of the first class, we were encouraged to take the class for credit, just in case any of us decided to pursue becoming credentialed as a licensed Unity teacher. Well, I knew there wasn't a snowball's chance in hell that I would ever become a licensed teacher, but yeah, something in me said I needed to take it for credit, and I did. So for the next few years, I survived between Sundays and Wednesdays, because I would go to church on Sunday and I would go to class on Wednesday. And I survived in between by trying to understand these spiritual principles and attempting to apply them to my life, which was a new idea. And I recall thinking, if only she, his soon-to-be ex-wife, would go to Unity and learn this stuff, my life would be so much easier, right? I wasn't a real quick study. And then I realized, no, if I would just apply these principles in my life, nothing she does will bother me. Wow, what a significant insight that was in my journey of transformation into becoming Reverend Brendalyn on a whole new level. So in 1986, my husband decided to retire from the Navy, and we began visiting various places around the country in search of where we wanted to live and work. And in the spring of that year, we visited, in spring of '86, we visited Los Alamos, New Mexico. And I dutifully checked the phone book. Some of you may remember those phone books. And I found there was a Unity Santa Fe about 30 miles away. And I breathed a sigh of relief, knowing I'd be safe living here because there was a Unity close by. So in the fall, just a few months later, we moved to Los Alamos, New Mexico. And I promptly called Unity Santa Fe. I was shocked. I was dismayed to hear a recording say, "The number you have dialed is no longer in service." Oh my God. I have moved to the middle of nowhere, and I felt as if the rug had just been pulled out from under me. How would I survive without Unity? So the next Sunday, I drove 100 miles to the Unity Ministry in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And after the service, I asked the minister, "What happened to Unity Santa Fe?" And he said, "Well, they closed their doors in the spring, but there's a group of people that want to reopen. And one of our licensed Unity teachers here in Albuquerque is helping them do so." Well, I got her phone number, I called her, I had lunch with her the next day, and I made the now prophetic statement, I will do anything to make sure there's a Unity in Santa Fe. And for the next 35 years, I did. I served wherever needed, including the Board of Trustees. I taught classes. I occasionally gave Sunday messages, and I began tithing, the T word, at least 10%, maybe more of my income, because serving on the board opened my eyes to what it cost to ensure there is a Unity in Santa Fe. So yes, I began tithing for totally selfish reasons. I was indeed willing to do anything to ensure there was a Unity Santa Fe for me. So I'm often asked, how did I get into, ministry? And so that takes me back to the last year I was living in Hawaii, when I attended a job-related workshop entitled Climbing the Career Ladder with Success and Confidence. It was a key factor in becoming Reverend Brendalyn. During the workshop, we were told to identify 3 things that we had done in life that we really enjoyed. And my 3 were winning the Hawaii State Toastmasters contest, back when Toastmasters didn't allow women. That's how long ago it was. Telling jokes and funny stories, and career counseling to support employees who were in dead-end jobs and wanted to get into a career. The next thing that we were asked to do in that workshop was to imagine what a job involving all those things would look like. And I immediately saw on the screen of my mind, I was down there on a stage in my mind, and I was talking, doing public speaking to an audience. So I thought, oh, I could be a motivational speaker. How exciting. Oh, wow. But I had two problems. No subject matter expertise and no confidence. But despite those facts, a seed was planted. And from then on, I jumped at any opportunity to lead training classes in my role as a human resource specialist. I moved closer to that vision when I indeed became a licensed Unity teacher and earned my master's degree in counseling in 1990 and 1991, respectively. So I'm sitting in service one Sunday morning, and our minister, Paul Tenalia, was giving the message. Now, Paul had been an off-Broadway actor when he found Unity and began his journey to becoming Reverend Paul. And as I was seeing him and hearing him talk, I suddenly had a burning bush experience. When I realized that he was doing everything that I wanted to do, everything that I'd seen in that vision. He was public speaking during his talks. He told stories and jokes, and he was doing pastoral counseling. Wow. So that moment was my call to ministry. So shortly thereafter, I applied for ministerial school and wasn't even invited for an interview. My application wasn't good enough. And so I felt very disappointed, but I knew enough to know that it didn't mean I wasn't supposed to be a Unity minister. It just meant I wasn't supposed to be in that class at that time. So fast forward a few more years, in June 94, in the midst of my second divorce, we're not counting. I only had 2 divorces. Okay. I attended my first Unity Worldwide People's Convention, and I took part in a workshop about a new program called the Field Program, through which licensed Unity teachers who found themselves as a leader, not necessarily the spiritual leader, but in some kind of leadership capacity in a Unity ministry, could become licensed and ordained. And I was thrilled with the idea and crestfallen when I realized you had to be employed by your ministry and you had to be making a minimum of $1,200 a month. And Unity Santa Fe could barely afford the part-time salary being paid to our 2 co-ministers, Richard Talley and Eileen Douglas. So as I was bemoaning this fact to them a few months later, Richard and Eileen looked at each other, nodded their heads, and told me that although they had not yet told the Board of Trustees, they were in fact looking for a larger ministry. And they said, when we find one, we'll recommend that the board hire you as the spiritual leader of Unity Santa Fe. And that would qualify me for the Field Program. Well, my first reaction was sheer terror. You know, be careful what you pray for. Wow, I could actually become a Unity minister. But my first words to them were, don't leave until Mama dies. Because my mother had come to live with me, and her doctor had called me 2 days before she arrived and said she won't be with you long. She has liver cancer, and so she'll probably only be with you a few weeks. So I midwifed her into that birth we call death, and it prepared me for ministry. So she went beyond the veil of her humanity on October 6th, 1994. And Richard and Eileen were hired by Unity of Omaha on October 30th. They gave 30 days notice, and within a few weeks, I was hired as spiritual leader of Unity Santa Fe for a 3-month trial. Wow, what a year. My second divorce was 2 months later, and my mom had died. I had moved. I mean, it was quite a year. Well, at the end of my 3-month trial, it was unanimous with the congregation and with the Board of Trustees. So I was offered the position permanently, and I joyfully said yes. So 14 years after I caught that vision of myself as a motivational speaker, I became one. A year after I started the job, I applied for and was accepted into the Unity Worldwide Ministries field program. A year later, I was credentialed as an associate Unity minister. I guess to God, because there was no other minister there to be associate to. A year after that, I was credentialed as a licensed Unity minister, and finally, 2 years later, an ordained Unity minister, all on the job training. Now you have to understand that before ministry, I didn't put it in my bio, I was quite the party girl. I could do stand-up comedy for hours, and I had been the life of the party since discovering alcohol in my teenage years. I said, but that's another chapter of the book, along with my bartending and singing cocktail waitress days. Truly, if I can do it, anyone can. And you know, I'm technically an introvert. I'm on the cusp of introvert, extrovert. And about a year ago, I was walking and I thought, I wonder why I used to think I was an extrovert. And I realized, oh, I was an alcoholic. Oh, I get it. So suffice it to say, the first obstacle I had to overcome was learning to tell clean, politically and spiritually appropriate jokes. I knew none. And I did have a coach in the congregation, and he would point out anytime I did anything that he considered not in the pulpit. He'd say, Brendalyn, that was not in the pulpit. Becoming Reverend Brendalyn. You want to hear the most risque one I've ever told from the pulpit? Okay. So what does an atheist say when he or she has an orgasm? Why is it hard to be an atheist? See, here you go. Why can't you be an atheist when you have an orgasm? Sorry about that. Because, you know, oh my God, right? I think I messed it up. See, I just don't know how to tell those kind of jokes anymore. Well, fast forward to September 15th, 2020. After sitting in the question for 7 years, I received a clear sign in a dream that it was time to retire. Because in that dream, I emphatically, I'd had a session with a psychic earlier that day, and she told me I would know within 24 hours my next career move. I didn't believe her. But that night I dreamed a dream. And in that dream, I emphatically told my ex-husband, my husband, and his wife after me, that it was time for them to retire. Okay. And I realized that he represented that part of me that liked the prestige of my position and the financial security of having a regular paycheck. And his then wife, I later came to find out about her. She represented that part of me that's fun-loving and wants to be free. So I returned from sabbatical the following week. And at our board meeting on September 26th, I announced my plan to retire the following fall. So I gave a year's notice. So today is the first Sunday message that I've given since September 19th, 2021. And it's the first Sunday message I've ever given about myself. So I hope through it you've gotten to know me and that you enjoyed it. But I want to go back to the Daily Word on September 18th, 1963. the last paragraph is the how-to that I will send you home with. Today, let us be aware of our responsibility for doing those things which are becoming to a child of God. Let us remember that we have been made in his image and reflect that likeness back to our Creator. We act becomingly as we become what we truly are, sons and daughters of the Most High. So that's our spiritual work. And one of the practical ways that you can accomplish that is stick around after the service. We're going to do a prayer chaplain orientation. Johannes has asked me to tell you about prayer chaplaincy. On Monday at 10 o'clock, attend Johannes and Jack's Keys to the Kingdom class. And then on Tuesday, of course, at 7 p.m., attend my Unified Mindfulness class. And then put on your don't know altar whether you are being called to be a Unity Prayer Chaplain, which will be my topic next Sunday. So in closing, my call to action for you and me today is based on something I heard in a 12-step room years ago. The speaker asked, do you believe you are a child of God? So I'm going to ask you, do you believe you are a child of God?
Yes.
All right. And that's how they answered. And so the next thing the speaker said was, if you believe you are a child of God, then act like it. And I would add, act like it in everything that you think, everything you say, and everything you do, as you continue becoming the child of God that you really are. Oh, now I thought we were going to have a song. Aren't we going to have a song? I thought we were going to have a song. No?
No, we are going to
Oh,
have the
okay.
song
Okay.
after we
Okay, don't
stop.
put the microphone anywhere near my voice because trust me, in singing, you don't want to hear that.
Thank you, thank you. That was awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So let's close our service. And again, if this is not for the Zoom audience, but those of you, if you can stay after the service like 20 minutes, we have the blessing of Brendalyn telling us what to be a chaplain, a prayer chaplain means. Not only for those who become chaplain, but what is the benefit of the congregation, okay, from those chaplains. So I invite you to stay here for 20 minutes after the Sunday service. So let's all do our prayer for protection.
Okay, so let's
Okay.
stand.
Please. Can we do it together? The light of God surrounds us. I am the light of God. The love of God enfolds us. I am the love of God. The power of God protects us. I am the power of God. The presence of God watches over us. I am the presence of God. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. Amen, amen, y amen.
And now you're going to do the,
Okay, we are going to do
this is where I don't get near the microphone.
our